Friday Workshop!
What are we doing this week?
This week we're going all about glue applications.
Glue?
Yeah!
So without further ado,
Here we go!
so the first tip is to choose the right glue. Sometimes we use CA glue, which is also known as super glue. Sometimes we use an epoxy. Sometimes we use a wood glue. But it really helps to know what kind of project you're doing, what you're putting together. With plastics, we tend to use the super glue. With wood, we tend to use the wood glue. Sometimes with fiberglass or metal and some other things, we tend to use like JB Weld or like an epoxy. It depends on what the project is. We will sometimes go off of that, but that's kind of what we do.
The second tip for glue is to make sure that it is fresh. It's all nice because guess what? Glue has an expiration date. And once it has gone past that expiration date, it doesn't often work as well and it's not as useful being glue.
The next tip is to prepare surfaces for glue. So you need clean surfaces for glue to stick. If you've got a bunch of sawdust on your project, glue won't stick to it as well. It won't work as well. So we like to clean our surfaces with mineral spirits, but we can use a bunch of other things. Just make sure the surface is clean and then dry before you put the glue in.
The next tip is to apply glue evenly. When it's not applied evenly, it can get all messy, it cannot hold as well, and when you're doing a glue and putting it on, you probably want to have the most thinnest coat you can.
The next one is, I'm not wearing a watch. Can you add that in post?
Sure.
Maybe you can, maybe you can't. The next one is for drying times. So different types of glue will have different types of drying times. Some types of glue will take longer to dry, some types of glue will be quicker. If you use CA glue and you use an applicator, that glue almost dries instantly, but without an applicator, sometimes it takes a little bit longer. Wood glue may even take longer than that. So epoxy also has its own drying time as well. This one is a 5-minute epoxy, but some ones take really long time. So always look at your directions and see how long the glue takes to dry before you start removing clamps.
The next tip is to use clamps for pressure. It'll help keep the glue solidly together, help it keep the two things that you want glued together.
You want to wipe off your excess glue. Glue can stain your project, and it's not great. So if you have too much glue, if it starts seeping out of the cracks and everybody puts on a little too much and sometimes it seeps out of there, make sure you wipe off that excess glue. It's a great tip. Sometimes a little bit of water also helps. The next tip is also a mineral spirits tip. This one's really important. Okay, so after you glue, you also use mineral spirits to see where those glue stains are. They'll show up when the wood's all wet. And what you want to do is sand those spots off. Otherwise, when you use finish, it's gonna suck. The finish won't stick to the glue at all, but it'll stick to the wood. So you have a lot lighter spots where the glue are. So that's a real good tip.
The next tip is to store glue effectively. You want to make sure that it's nice, cool, and it's not too super hot, not all wet. It's a good spot to keep it so that your glue stays nice and dry and ready for your next project.
Close those lids. All the lids. You want your glue not to dry out.
Friday Workshop
And a bonus tip,
is to watch Friday Workshop.
because you know what? We give a ton of tips on glue, like
Using a mustard bottle
or spreading on.
salt.
Yeah, the friction from the salt. When you clamp it down, it makes sure that the pieces don't move. The salt sticks into both sides of the wood. Super cool tips.
Yep.
So watch videos like
This one
and like.
and subscribe.
Woohoo!